Coproduction, but we'll just be sharing with you some of the things that have happened or may be happening in your local areas and regions during lockdown. So glad Lisa's here. Lisa's like a tech guru. She's amazing.
Can everybody see? Can you see the presentation?
Brilliant, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So I guess what we were looking at is, what does co-production look like during pandemic? And it certainly doesn't look like the lovely picture we've put up there previously, where we were all together in a room having a great time, having conversations. So my name's Kath Bromfield, and I am the Northwest Steering Group member for the National Network of Parent Carer Forums. So I'm one of 10 people who represent the over 90,000 members nationally, and we come together and work out our thinking around things from what we're hearing. And we also work nationally, regionally and locally with professionals and partners and our parent carer forums and their membership.
My name's Lisa Aldred, and I work for Contact as Parent Carer Participation Advisor. I cover Yorkshire and Humber region and some areas in the northwest. So that's us, and we was just going to ask everybody to just quickly introduce themselves, say what area you're from, and say hi, if that's okay. If anybody doesn't want to, that's fine as well. No, it works differently on here, Kath, so I can't see anybody. Do you want to?
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So if we start with Helen C, are you okay introducing yourself?
Yes, hello. I'm Helen Corsier. I work in Wakefield with the Inclusion and Send Support Service there.
Hi.
Lovely. I was just with Melissa on the phone yesterday from Kids Up there. We've got Bromfield S. I do love trying to negotiate these names. I'm the worst person for it. So.
Okay, hi Kath. Sue Rumbold, I'm the Programme Director for the West Yorkshire and Harrogate Integrated Care System.
Lovely.
Hi.
I don't know if you all heard Christine before when a load of Northerners were coming on. She was like,
Yeah.
what's going on? And we've got Bowley.
Hi everyone, I'm Rachel. I work for the Early Years SEN team at Croydon Council.
Lovely,
Hi.
very welcome.
Thank you.
We've got Tracy.
I was on mute. Hi, Kath. It's Tracy Hart. I work in the nursing team at Greater Manchester Health and Social Care Partnership. So hello to everybody.
You do. It's lovely to see a familiar face,
You
Tracy.
too,
You're
Kath.
very welcome. And we've got an A. Birkinshaw.
Hi, that's me. It's Anna Birkinshaw, and I'm the Local Offer Development Officer for Lancashire County Council.
Brilliant. Thank you, Anna. And we've got A. Code Joe.
Yes, that's me, and I work as a consultant for East Sussex County Council and part of the senior leadership team.
Lovely. And I've got a Michelle H.
Yeah, hi Kath and Lisa. I'm Michelle Henley. I'm the Strategic Send Lead for Redcar in Cleveland.
Hi.
Lovely. You're very welcome today. Nice to see you all.
Thanks.
Is that everybody?
It is, I think. It's everyone I can see.
Lovely to see everybody. Thank you for coming to this presentation. So today we're going to be talking about what co-production has looked like during the pandemic. Co-production at the best of times is not easy, and this has been a really difficult time. However, we've seen some amazing examples of where local authorities, health partners and parent carer forums have worked together to have some really great outcomes for children, young people and families. So we just want to share some of those experiences today and talk through that. So just in case anybody isn't aware what a parent carer forum is, although I'm sure most people are, just to touch on it, parent carer forums are local groups of parent carers who represent other parent carers of children and young people aged 0 to 25 with special educational needs and disabilities. There's one parent carer forum per local authority area, and this is funded by the Department for Education. They get a grant of £15,000 a year, which this year very nicely is going up to 17,500. So we're very pleased about that it recognises the value of parent care forums. And that also means that forum has a memorandum of understanding with the local authority to be an equal partner. Each forum in every area is independent and they take up whatever structure suits them. So from a constituted group, charity, community, interest company, whatever works for them. So what's different in COVID is that for forums, the Department for Education grant conditions are usually very specific about strategic involvement and engaging parents in making change strategically. This year, there's a lot more flexibility, and the DFE have said, you know, let's look at reducing social isolation and bearing in mind that a lot of forums are parent care volunteers and having children at home to look after. There's quite a lot struggled with capacity. So it's about really being creative and reaching out to families, but also ensuring the sustainability of forums.
So obviously it's been a really difficult time for lots of forums, like everybody else, struggling with lockdown and the difficulties that brings and the changes that brings to our life. As Lisa's just said, you know, parent carer forums are made up of parent carers, therefore they have those additional things going on anyway. But to then be in lockdown and running a forum, which for many parents is the place they go to where they feel safe, has been really quite a challenge. So forums have flourished, I think, and you know, we've been really clear on this nationally, that we were on the front line and therefore we were hearing things slightly before the national teams were understanding or thinking about things. So we've got first-hand experience and we're able to respond fast with existing communication channels. And what we mean by that is, you know, we're able to feed to our local areas and our teams that we work with when we hear things, but we're also able to feed it up and nationally gather some things that were happening. So as we'll go through with this, what we've seen consistently is often we've been raising issues nationally with departments that maybe they weren't as fully aware of just yet. It took a bit longer for them to hear it through their channels. Ours was much more frontline, and I think it's safe to say we had some intel really on how people were responding to things quite quickly.
So one of the ways that local authorities have been working with forums is allocating the emergency grant funding to parent care forums to be able to distribute that directly to families. So forums have already got access to their membership and the wider parent carers in the area, and we're able to easily reach out to those families to say, you know, how can this money best work for you? So for example, in my local area, the local authority gave £10,000 to the parent carer forum. The forum asked families, you know, how would you best benefit from this? The only criteria being that it's to enhance learning and development and help children catch up with their education. So families thought about different ways, vouchers, sensory bags, things like that, and came up with what the decision was. They got £40 each child to buy something for their child that would develop their learning. So they got things like these sensory balls, technical equipment. I mean, the things that people got with £40 is quite extraordinary. But they were all really delighted because it was very person-centred and individual to their child that would help them develop. So if it was weighted blankets that helped them sleep and things like that. So it was a really great way of just seeing the outcomes straight away of how this benefited children and young people. Similarly, there were local authorities and health who helped work with forums to develop some wellbeing packs or sensory packs. So these worked in a variety of ways. Some went to parent carers and some went to children. So there were toys, sensory balls, stress balls, like mindfulness colouring books. And in the parents' wellbeing packs, you know, it could be things like candles, but it was really important when, you know, reaching out to families, they felt connected to a community that cared about them. So by working together, it helped build a stronger community and reach out to more families that would then be able to share their experiences as well, to work on how to better support them moving forward.
And I think building on that, what we know is that some families aren't going to ring services to say they're struggling, but when you're dropping off a wellbeing pack or you're having a conversation, you're like, you're really not right. Are you all right? No, I'm not all right. And that those opening those channels of conversation that weren't necessarily about professionals was really important too. So in my area, we bought lots and lots of the sunflower lanyards. And that was really good learning for us. So we made a decision not to just send it out to our members, but the whole of the SEND community. We were really concerned that our SEND support community didn't think they were part of the conversation. When we're talking about vulnerable and protected groups and all the things nationally that were being discussed, some of our families are unaware that being on SEND support allows you some of those experiences. So what we did was we got the sunflower lanyards and we got the thing about wearing the masks exemption, and we sent a note out to say, if this isn't for you, that's fine, and send it back to us. But what we're saying to you is there are rules and there is guidance, and this is where it is. Also, these are some of the helplines the council have and the CCG have for help. Don't be alone. You're part of our community. And our learning from that was immense. We had parents getting in touch to say, my child isn't SEND support. When they were 4, they had a meeting and we've not heard anything since. So what we realised was it was a really big piece of work done in collaboration with our local authority, and that they realised their database needed some work, and that schools' understanding of who was on the SEND support and who came off it needed some work. So it was a great piece of co-production in the sense that it started conversations with families, and because we'd said, if it's not for you, let us know, it's no problem, we had some really detailed conversation from families who hadn't been in touch for over a decade with the local authority, but were able to start that conversation. Some you know, were really worried about belonging to the community of SEND, and we are allowed to have those conversations as well. So like Lisa said, we now have a group of parents who weren't engaged in the conversation before lockdown, who now are part of the forums and are now talking to schools. It raised lots of confusion around schools as well. So it was a really useful tool to kind of go, can we clarify what we mean by this and what we're doing? So we've also got some virtual sessions that went on. So parent carer forums very quickly responded. Not all, some forums are really struggling, and I'm always a big fan of saying if they're still looking at the Facebook page, that's enough. But others responded really well and had a lot of sessions going on. You know, we've got some examples up there of Live Pack, Rotherham, I think Jane's on now, on the workshop, and it also kind of combining those with the professionals to what's the offer, how are we reaching families, and you'll get these slides so you can unpick these for your own areas with ideas. Just let me check the chat in case it's Jane who's said something. Sorry. How did we know who to contact in the wider sense to involve the over a decade? Yeah, so what we did is we worked with the council, we made packs up, and then we asked them to label them so GDPR wasn't being confused at all. But what it did was kind of do an audit of the database as well, and made conversations happen from that. And so we had maybe 100 families ring to query why we were sending them one and if they needed it and if they didn't. And some of the families who didn't think they should have been getting one were really, really in need. So they had some children who weren't going out because they couldn't tolerate a mask. And you know, it was stopping them even going to the park or for a walk. So really, children's well-being was definitely improved by the exercise.
I think as well, to follow on from that, Kath, is the virtual sessions were very diverse. So there was resilience training, lots of things to support families, but there was lots of opportunities to work with local authority and health partners in sharing information. So having sessions that educational psychologists come along to, speech therapists, CAMs, lots of different, so some were information sharing, some were feedback sessions. There was lots of different opportunities because it was a lot easier to meet up and able to access parents, and it was just finding, you know, the right times, the right topics that really enabled parents to engage with all the partners.
So as well, some areas kind of use the idea of seasonal fun. So doing some Christmas activities that drew in parents, asking parents to get in touch if they wanted a pack. I think the little guys in the red are doing a pancake mix. So they had a competition for the best pancake, but they delivered whole kits to families. So families got the tin, the flour, the oil. They kind of did the whole thing to encourage a family engagement session if that was what they wanted to do. And also, I think in the top corner there, there's some Halloween packs. So using events that were coming up in the calendar to engage families. And what we saw a lot of is, well, my friend's got a child we send, but they're not a member of the forum. Can they sign up to get that? So actually reaching many more parents who didn't associate with forums that are now part of those forums, engaging, but also things were coming that were helping families do activities. Because obviously some of our families maybe don't have the tins and are really struggling around buying things, especially if they're shielding and can't get out and things like that. So the other thing I think we found that was really good, and when we're talking about these, we're drawing out some of the best national practice. This is not to expect your forums to be working in this way. We're just sharing what some areas have done. And some areas have kind of been able to be representative and to come up with reports that are helpful in COVID around this. So one of the forums I work with, you know, didn't always have great strategic sign up, but they've gone right to immediate COVID meetings every week. They have a catch up. Lots of forums are doing that strategically with their directors, assistant directors, leads. And actually what they found is they've had that space to have an hour conversation every week that is leading to greater representation of families at meetings, but also a greater understanding of how to move forward after COVID.
Just to share a few examples of some of the work that's been going on, a booklet was produced by Gloucestershire, by the Parent Care Forum and the local authority, that helped parents understand the coronavirus situation. It was in an easy to read format and really helped reassure parents. So that was just like a really simple thing that was able to work on and put together. Something else that was done in quite a few areas in terms of direct payments in York, they had a system where you could claim 100 hours of direct payments or an activity or something like that. And when coronavirus lockdown happened, lots of families were struggling to get PAs, you know, it was a very complicated situation and activities were closed down and some families were left with no support. So those families that rang found out that they could get very flexible arrangements of getting a trampoline for the garden or garden equipment or digital equipment, which was great, but not everybody knew about it and some parents started to get upset. So the forum contacted the Short Breaks team, they got together, they did a question and answer session for parents, that they shared all the information, what you could use your direct payments on, to the wider families in the area, and that was really great in enabling families to be able to access that on a wider, more fair level. And because that was so successful, they then did that with lots of other teams, like the educational psychology, the specialist careers advisors, and lots of teams in the area. Again, another example, Suffolk, where they was doing surveys to help feed in what mental health support families might need, so that could feed in directly. And like Kath was saying, I think it's been one of the things that's come out quite key in a lot of these things where things have gone really well, is about the communication. And the Parent Care Forum were part of the local authority daily tactical management calls and the CCG demand and capacity and service quality calls, and that's a mouthful, isn't it? So they were able to hear exactly, you know, what the reality of the impact was, and to feed in exactly what families were experiencing as well. So it was being really responsive to need right there and then, and being able to, you know, react to that and provide what families need.
And I'm not known for not being outspoken, so I'll just say it as well. I think what was interesting is when we started these conversations in lockdown, you know, an authority might say all our schools are open, but the forum might say that isn't what we're hearing. There's a bit of an in-between bit where what schools were feeding back to local areas wasn't actually the reality. And that's what I meant about that cold face, that being right on the front line. These weren't parents complaining even, they were just saying, oh, my school's not open. So that showed there was an issue either around who was telling the truth, or in a more positive slant on that, you know, there's a communication issue by what we mean as open. Are we asking about numbers? Are we asking about how many SEND or EHCP pupils are in? And it also meant we got to feedback some really good practice. So in some areas, you know, we heard of schools that right away we're letting mental health pupils with mental health worries go in school because they recognise SEND support. There were some great examples around the child with the EHCP not being in school, but the siblings being in school to take some pressure off the home day and all that creative stuff. You know, we needed to hear that at the time, and local areas did too. So strategic co-production, I think it's about forums aren't just that family voice, it's that strategic understanding, and I think that came into its own under lockdown. So we have a number of national areas that feed into regions, and we all were in contact with that. So nationally, NNPCF have done regular updates. These are what families are saying to us. This is what forums are saying to us from our many families nationally. And that's really helpful when we're working with partners and for people in local areas to say, well, I've heard in other areas this is what would help. This is good practice. Thanks, Lisa.
And I think as well, just to add to that is, you know, pulling together a parent carer charter is quite an important, and, you know, it can take a while and difficult to manage. But in COVID, there's people who've done this, they've adapted and they've really pulled together some great work, which has been just amazing, because it's, you know, we're working online, we're not face to face, all those relationships that are really important in this. You know, then they've not been there the same, but people have still managed to do some really great work. So it just shows how much it can be done. And some of the great stuff that's been pulled together has been absolutely amazing. So I just think it's really,
and shows intention from everyone, really. It's really exciting.
Yeah.
So regionally, we've worked with regions, there's been joint newsletters still gone out, there's been lots of Zoom meetings, there's been some you know, regular updates from DFE and Health that we feed nationally into our regions. There's co-production events that have gone on during lockdown, and I think, you know, one of the things we found for our forums is we meet as a region weekly. We have our Thursday night slot, 7 o'clock till 8. you can bring a cup of tea, you can bring a glass of wine. We just check how we all are, because we're running a forum, and we often sit round the table with people who, you know, are paid very well for what they do, and we're less so often. So it's useful to understand the demands on our time, how we work together, but also to share that good practice or worries. So I'm hearing, you know, about this. Is anyone else? Yeah, I've heard about that. And that's really helpful to me, who can then feed up nationally, but also into our regional meetings to say, is there something going on in the Northwest, or is there something going on in the East? You know, and that's really helpful as we come together. So that feeds into our national and feeds back down. So we work directly in meetings, we have weekly meetings, but we also meet with the minister. So I think we sat down with Vicky Ford at the start of March, I remember, because it was St. Patrick's, so it's like the 17th of March. We were sitting down with her in a meeting, and we had it on Zoom, and we had those really frank conversations with, this is what we're thinking, and we went, oh, that's brilliant. I'm not sure about that. What do we think about that? And we had a conversation just like you do in your local areas. That meant things change. So approaches changed, and our children, people with EHCPs, became part of that conversation for understanding that it was safer for some children to be in school than be at home for various reasons, and the pressures that entails. And they're really good discussions, and they're just what's happening locally, but we have them nationally. So we would have conversations at the learning disability and autism meetings. We sit on many meetings. They haven't stopped during lockdown to get that voice of parents, but also what we're hearing. So co-production, we talk about it loads, and we all mean different things by it, but I think it's really important that we've seen some really good co-production. When people have landed co-production, it has really worked even in lockdown. We had a lot of conversations at the beginning where people were saying, you know, oh, we haven't got time for that now, and we haven't got time to not do it. So co-production is deciding you want to eat a pizza together, to actually talk about what toppings and what dough and what crust, to actually go and buy those things together, to source out what that looks like, and to actually bake it and make it together, and then enjoy eating it together. And I think we need to revisit that a little bit when we're in times of crisis and we feel like we've just got to do things really fast all the time. So for us, that's very different than the here you are, we've gone away, we've made a pizza, we've decided what that looks like, can you tell us what it tastes like? That's not co-production. And so in the areas that have had those experiences, you know, there's unsettlement, because it's not what people want or need. It's not what the forums are feeding back that people need. So it's much helpful to be part with your forum in those things. And I just think we help save mistakes, we help fix things. So it is a recognition, really, I suppose, and this is a whistle-top kind of workshop Lisa and I have tried to do with all the different things that are going on. But co-production is messy. If it looks really smooth and easy, it's not working. And it takes time. Even in COVID, when we're in a rush mode, I think it's really important to remember, have we got someone with lived experience here? Is our forum in this meeting? Are we being challenged on what we're thinking? Because everybody kind of got really focused. So it helps save that time and effort to be in the right areas. And so it can be uncomfortable, but it is absolutely worth it. And what we saw, I think, in lockdown is those areas that were working with good co-production before continued that. But we also saw areas that hadn't been finding it easy. And under co-production, under COVID, it's just kind of happened because they've included them virtually much more easier in the conversations and decision making.
So I think pulling some of the things together to take away, it's recognising that there have been a lot of pressure on forums, and we're giving some great examples of some forums, and there's been a lot more that have really flourished, but some have struggled with capacity, and it's about respecting and encouraging their expertise, but also understanding that it's been a difficult time. And again, going back to the good communication, it's so cliche, and you know, good communication is key, but it really, really has come across so evidently in the ways that families have been really had some good outcomes, and it's come down to the local authority and health partners really communicating with the parent carer forum and having that on the ground information and feeding and regular sort of relationship building opportunities to be able to develop that trust and feed things in. So that's certainly something to take away. No one is saying it's easy, because it really isn't. Co-production can be very difficult, but it's worth persevering. And you know, if anything, if it can be done in COVID times, I mean, it can be done anytime, and this has just given us opportunity to see the direct impact in a very quick way, and it's definitely shown that it's so worth it. And another thing is just how creative, adaptable and amazing people can be. You know, everybody would think, you know, we went into lockdown, everybody's had so many challenges, working from home, trying to look after your children. Forums have been caring for children and young people whilst coming up with some of these great ideas to support others. So, you know, everybody can have the opportunity to be creative, adaptable and amazing.
Absolutely, and it leads me on to a cheeky thing. I always say that co-production is a relationship, not a one-night stand. So it's not good enough to kind of fly in and say, oh, can you do this for me? It takes time and energy, and it has bumpy roads in that. So what we're saying is, regardless where you think it is with working through co-production in your area, here are some of our quick wins in COVID to start those relationships or keep those relationships. I just appreciate them. And a few of the things we're saying is to phone or text the forum chair and say, can I just say thank you? Like, I think I run round and I forget to do that. Thank you for all you're doing, even if that isn't that much. Reach out to the forum and wider and tell them you appreciate them. Maybe you know, a message through the social media channels that you use in your localities, and also recognise what the forum have achieved through COVID and celebrate this. Say to them, what are you most proud of? And if all they've done is go on Facebook, say, well, that's amazing, because you've connected with those families that might need that. And I've lost my screen, so I don't know what the last few were, but it was basically along those lines. Reach out and just keep giving and being honest. So I think the way co-production works is people saying, we've had an idea, tell us whether that's going to work or not, or have you any ideas for how we can proceed and how we can manage it, and let, you know, that external voice be a challenge to you. Don't take it as a criticism that's negative. Take it as, well, thank God you're sharing with us. So with one final thing to kind of go to, and that's to talk about what you might do differently following this very brief quick workshop. So if you can write in chat or the Menti code. So if you know how to use Menti, you just put 8898430 and you can fill in what your pledge might be following this around co-production. What's your quick win, or what's the thing you've heard today and thought, I want to know more about that? How can we do something like that?
Or you can just sort of mention it now, anything that you think that, you know, you've heard, and oh, I'll go away and do that.
Absolutely.
If anybody can get onto Menti. I'm not sure if that's the website, if you can see.
Brilliant. So Michelle's saying, while people are doing that, you know, chair had to step down. That is tough, but I think, you know, it's okay as well. We're giving permission to some of our forum leads that it's okay to step back. But I think just being honest and say, you know, we know it's tough. How can we meet up? Can we just meet up for coffee on Zoom one day for half an hour and see if that starts things to happen?
I think it's been flexible as well, Kath, isn't it? Because obviously the local authority have set working hours, but we always say, you know, we could do it at the end of the day or whatever's flexible for you when your children are in bed. Or I know it's not great for everybody, but I think we have to bear that in mind.
Absolutely. If you come out of hours to me, I know you're sending me a message immediately to our forum. It's a real quick win for half an hour on a Wednesday night.
And just to end off with this, I think, you know, we're talking a lot about forums and what forums have done, and it's about, you know, thank you so much for all the work that you've done. It's been difficult times for everybody, and everybody's worked really hard and been creative. So big hand to everybody who's
absolutely. And just to address the young people issue, because we're parent carers, we feel very passionately we're not the voice of young people. So there will have been some really great stuff around young people, but we wouldn't dream of speaking to that, because obviously I know my son would say I'm not his voice, and nor should I try to be. So I'm really, really strict on that. So yes, you should be doing all this with your children and young people groups. Just thank you very much for listening. I think, you know, our details are on the back of the slides. Get in touch if that's helpful. We hope it hit what you wanted to learn from this. If not, shout out or anything really, Tracy.
Yeah, no, it was really helpful. Thanks, Kath and Lisa, and I think someone else commented, I really love the analogy about the pizza. I think that really is clear about what co-production really is, and it's not consultation, is it not? Yeah. It's co-production from the start of from even before the start of the process, isn't it? Absolutely.
And it's a good shout giving people pizza, but it's much better if you've had that discussion before, isn't it? And
Kath, do you have a list of all the GM parent carer forums as well?
I do, Tracy.
Yeah. Thank you.
So if you want to, you've got my email.
I have.
Yeah. If you message me, I can send you that. They're dead keen to be involved.
Fab. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Lovely.
Thank you all very much.
I think we've got. We might get cut off at any minute, Gail.
Well, I was just coming on to say that whether we're up to time, but I'm happy to continue the session for another couple of minutes if you guys want. If there's anything else that anybody wants to say or to contribute.
Somebody had the hand up, Gail, but it disappeared. So
no,
you're either going to have.
I think that was Tracy. I think she's put her hand back down again.
Okay.
But I do know that spending a lot of time looking at a camera and spending a lot of time in these virtual sessions can be quite wearing. So I do want to make sure people have a break before the next session. So unless I'm not sensing much in the way of the chat that we've got any burning questions that need to be wrapped up. So what I'm going to be doing is stopping the recording, and we can finish this particular session. Thank you so much for everybody.
Thank
Kath
you.
and Lisa.
Lisa and Kath.
That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I can't